Hello and welcome to Everything Electric, day 2 of this 3-day and everything electric is really the best way to describe it, expo. This is a road show that's traveling around the world from the team who produced the Fully Charged show, which is a EV car reviews, road tests, news source and outlet. They also do a lot about home electrification, and they've got a really big campaign going on called Stop Burning Stuff, or Stop BS. Everything Electric is this year happening for the second time in Sydney at the Olympic Showgrounds, and it is major car manufacturers, pretty much everyone you can think of with a sizable presence in the Australian car market is here, showing off their EVs, letting you do test drives, talking about how it all works together for you in your home with charging. There's a lot of retailers here, a lot of energy side as well. I've just been sitting in a panel about VPPs, virtual power plants, about how the grid is changing, about how Australian weather patterns are changing, and what we're going to have to do in the future to have safe, secure, reliable power, which we all know we need, of course, for modern life. This is where Transmission comes in. So if you're checking this out, you probably know that Transmission is a podcast all about the energy transition. It's not so much about transmission lines, it's about how we are going from where we are now to the future where electrification is ubiquitous, everything around you is electrified, and how that power is being produced and who is working on these problems. So Transmission is where myself, Mark Spencer, talks to people who are in the energy industry and various facets of it, on the retail side, on the generation side, people doing all the cool middleware, integration, software work we need to do to bring together this new paradigm of decentralized power production and bring it to the masses and have this very fast, unprecedentedly fast rollout of new technology. So as you can see behind me, we're in the Dome at the Sydney Olympic Showgrounds. It is about 600 meters down to the end there. I'm not sure how many football pitches that is, but it's a huge space, and then all the test drives are leaving from down there at the end. It's been a huge day for me. Right from the start, when doors opened at 10, straight away into a BMW iX3, which was great, very, very confident, capable SUV. Not something I'd probably buy myself, but for those of you who are going to buy SUVs, and there are a lot of you, so I won't pick on you, there's safety in numbers. Very nice car. I then got into a Polestar 2, which is very much a dream car for me. It's a fastback sports sedan, but solo. Had that one to myself for 20 minutes. That was a whole lot of fun. Then I had to go in the Audi, the e-tron, the electric R8 essentially. At least in the Australian lineup for Audi, the R8 is gone, the e-tron is in. And in the passenger seat was a race car driver. We had a lot of fun. We went on the freeway. I've had to recover from that for the last couple of hours to let my brain come back from being smushed against the back of my skull. This show ticked all the boxes for me. I've been a pig in mud. Talking to a lot of electric people, from the retailers, the whole electricity stack. The car stuff is very fun, and of course it gets people in. I'm not really a car guy, but riding around an electric trails bike was very fun. And the first test drive I did has not yet been matched. Day 1, 10 a.m. again, right as they started doing test drives, I got into the Peugeot e-Partner van. And boy, I want an electric van, I'll tell you what. So, what you're about to see now is a chat with the man behind all of this. His name, you're about to learn. You also can tell from the title. But if you've seen Red Dwarf, you know his face from being in a screen. He is Crichton. If you watch Scrap Heap Challenge or Junkyard Wars in the States, he is the host of that program for a decade. And you're about to learn what would have happened with that show if the pandemic hadn't happened, and a show that would have been so perfect for our times now would have been on your screens. But he then went on to create Fully Charged, basically the electric vehicle answer to Top Gear, with very magnanimous with very magnanimous, kind hosts and really good reviews of very exciting EVs. And I asked this man what he thought the shape and size of the electric transition looked like, and why people who are young, just starting their careers, recent school leavers, people looking now to plan their futures, why getting into the electric fields is full of opportunity. Robert, Mr. Llewyln, Robert, not Bob, Robert. You were the host of Scrap Heap Challenge for 10 years.
Yep.
You inspired a lot of young people to get into mechanical engineering, thinking practically. It's actually great because I was talking to a colleague of mine yesterday, said I had the opportunity to book you in for an interview, and he said, oh my God, he was the host of the show that got me into engineering.
Right, yeah, it's extraordinary, yeah.
So I was going to ask, if you were, putting on your executive producer hat, developing a new show for 2024 in the electrified age, what would that look like, I guess?
Well, I mean, we actually did try pre-lockdown, and it was lockdown that really messed it up. We tried to just do a pilot of a show called Zap Heap Challenge, which is exactly the same show, but we used
what would the Americans have done?
But old batteries, battery management systems, electric motors, and which we'd get out of wrecked cars, of which there's now quite a lot, and used to make something that wasn't a car. So we had it all planned out, and it was, it was very close, and the plan was to do it in June of 2020. So this is 2018-19, we were planning it. And it's kind of fallen flat because we just obviously couldn't do it, and it's a shame because it is such a, the amount of people I've met in the last 15 years who now have like proper jobs in proper engineering facilities, who sat with, and it's a double-edged sword because they say, I used to sit on with my dad and watch Scrap Heap, going, well, you have to rub it in, because these are proper grown-up people with jobs and children and mortgages, all that stuff. So
potentially a spin-off company.
Well, it would be great. I mean, we're so flat out just doing what we're doing. It's a pretty full-on job.
I'm still waiting for Antarctica.
Yeah. Fully charged Antarctica would be great. Everything electric Antarctica, but it is, it's something I wouldn't want to do it, present it anymore. I'd obviously do a pilot or something like that to get it going. Yeah. But it was such an extraordinary experience to see all those engineers and how incredibly inventive they were and how hard they worked making those machines. And so it was, it definitely it was a dream job, basically.
Very good. Thank you. I'm just going to leave that with you, actually, and I might totally destroy my entire setup here. But
you have that one?
Yeah, you're very comfortable with that.
I'm happy to hold that, yeah.
The distance and the space thing and everything. This is to idiot-proof, and you're not new to this. And you told this story in today's sort of first session fireside chat, but what was like an early eureka moment for you with realizing that electrification wasn't just the future or our forgotten past from the 1880s, but the future was not only arriving, but it was kind of here.
Yes. I mean, I think it was when I understood the connection between in effect, the computer industry and the automotive industry, particularly in California. So I just happened to be working in California, I think in 4 or 5 crucial years in the early noughties, where an enormous amount of research and development and designing and thinking about electric transport was happening. And it was definitely in the background in my thinking. I was aware that it was going on, I was meeting people who were involved, but it definitely wasn't like, I couldn't tell if it was the future, but there was something happening, and it was the legislation that was passed in California, and the Californian Air Resource Board. I kind of learnt this backwards. I got a lift in a Prius and went, why would you bother to do this?
We
didn't have we didn't have the Prius in the UK at that time. It was in California first. And then you learn, because the gas that comes out of the tailpipe is poisonous. Well, which I sort of knew, but we're all used to it. So
yeah, you don't question when you don't question normality.
It's just normal, yeah.
But you were exposed to people who weren't thinking different.
Also my first visit to Los Angeles, which I think was in 1986, I remember getting out the plane and thinking, I've caught something on the plane. My eyes are stinging, my throat's hurting. What is it? And then I looked out and I couldn't see across the street because the smog was, on those bad days back then when there was no unleaded petrol, there was no catalytic converters, all that stuff. It was catastrophic in Los Angeles. And we kind of forget now
Living up
really
in
was
Seattle,
bad.
we used to have LA Air Days where come visit.
Where it would actually blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do not want that.
Not
So
at all.
that, that kind of understanding. So it kind of came very much for me around clean air quality in cities, all those things. And my children were young at the time, so I thought, I don't want them to breathe this stuff. And you kind of gradually, but this is over a period of years, not months.
Absolutely.
I'm a slow learner.
And yet, when you get there, you do something with it.
This is extraordinary. I mean, So then it was. Partly was that experience I'd had in California, and there was no question, there was an episode of Top Gear where Jeremy Clarkson drove the Nissan Leaf that had just come out. Yes, it was the Nissan, I'm just trying to remember what it was, or the Tesla Roadster, one of those. So it was a very, very early, 2008-9, that time of period, and he was saying it's amazing, he had brilliant lines, you've got to hand it to him. He said,
absolutely.
I thought electric cars were...
golf carts or something,
but then I see. I thought electric cars were dial-up modems, but this is broadband because it was so fast. It comes up with those sort of analogies. But then he just went on about coal and throwing batteries away, and I went, I just know that's not right. I don't know why I know that's not right, but I'm incredibly convinced it isn't. So that was a galvanizing factor for me to go, well, let's try out and see what these things are really like. And what the real story is, and it's really, this has all grown from that sort of early days.
That exploration of the truth, and now that we are here and this roadshow is happening, how do you kind of conceptualize yourself or see, if you're painting a word picture, the size and scale of this transition we're going through? If you want to use an historical parallel, you're welcome to.
I mean, I think it is really hard to quite see it because we're in the middle of it, and I think it's going to take like 50 years for people to look back and go, oh,
that's
that
what
really
it was.
Did change then. And I mean, it's still, I've never been convinced by any technology. It's all because it's changing. So even though, if you think of an electric car 10 years ago, these things that are here today make that look positively like a wind-up toy.
Absolutely.
I mean, the advances are incredible. The advances in everything.
An
to do
EV
with it.
10 years ago, your Toyota iMEV.
Yeah.
That is closer to the 1880s Benz model than the e-tron.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the pace is just quickening.
And the batteries are still developing so fast, and the software is developing so fast. So it is very hard to kind of go, this is happening. But I think it really feels that we've kind of passed a tipping point.
Yes.
Not all over the world. There's places in the world where it's way behind, and places that are way advanced. I mean, we often refer to Norway.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a ridiculous thing. Norway have such a massive income from gas and oil.
Absolutely.
They can afford to do it. But
they can afford to actively divest.
But 92% of their new cars in 2023 were electric, not hybrid, just pure electric. 92%. That's a fairly convincing win of an argument, So
100% is, and it's always great. In Australia, we're generally behind by 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and that's a wonderful position because you can see what works and what doesn't, and apply the lessons that are applicable.
It's a great advantage, I think. I mean, I think the thing I always want to say about Australia is that the adoption of solar is so way ahead of anywhere else. That's the thing.
Because the maths were undeniable.
So it doesn't matter what your political opinions or your opinions about climate, you go, oh,
Everyone hates the power bill.
I can reduce my power bill by a lot in the day when I use power in Australia. But I mean, also, it is that advantage that Australians have now is that they don't have to live with the first model Nissan Leaf that just about got 100 miles on a warm day if you were going downhill with a following wind.
Just about converted you from being an EV passionate to being like, nah, maybe not.
But whereas these cars, I drove here from Brisbane, it was a non-event. In terms of charging and getting here, it was a non-event.
That's right. I caught an electric train to Newcastle last week and back. Right. I'll be slowly chugging along the landscape back to Melbourne on Sunday, an 11-hour diesel train journey, and praying for us to catch up and go electric.
Yeah.
I guess to talk about the Australian context a little bit, and to use my own clumsy visual word picture, if we're out in the surf and we're sort of surfers looking if we're going to catch this wave of electrification, it's undeniable now the wave is starting to crest, as you say. So if you were talking to a young school leaver, and I wish I was, I'm no longer that age, but who's someone who's passionate about EVs, who's seen the Teslas, seen all the cool cars, maybe has them on their wall, but has been exposed to the fear, uncertainty, and doubt about,
Yeah.
oh, EVs, oh, the recycling, oh, the plateauing sales, oh, the this, oh, the that.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for them to be like, no, get involved now, you won't regret it?
Yeah, well, absolutely without question. And I think the important thing we've got to remember is that currently the normal thing for us is to go somewhere where there's oil underground. We drill a big hole, uses energy. We pump that oil out, uses energy. We store that oil, we put it on a ship. That ship is the most energy inefficient ship that we use.
Yep.
An oil tanker, it sits lower in the water, pushes more water out of the way, uses more fuel to move.
Burning bunker oil.
We then use a lot of oil and electricity, enormous to refine that. Yep. We then put it in an engine and we burn it once. One time. So every single car in this building, the batteries will last, we don't even know, but 10 to 15 years without any problem whatsoever.
100%.
They then have another 10 to 15 years of life afterwards. Then there's a massive industry which is going to grow enormously, which is recycling those batteries and making new ones out of it. And it's not like a theoretical thing. Modern Teslas now have something like between 10 and 15% recycled material in them, which is a company called Redwood Materials are doing it, which is one of the founders of Tesla set up a company that recycles batteries. That employs people. That is a really technically challenging job. It's difficult. There's going to be lots of developments. There's enormous opportunities. And that's just cars. What about renewables? What about the grid? What about grid maintenance, and the software that runs our grid has got to be upgraded enormously. You know, that applies to every country on the planet. So there's more jobs than you can poke a stick at that are developing, some of which we don't even know about yet. There's going to be jobs that don't exist now that will exist in 5 and 10 years' time that we haven't even got words to describe.
It's time to join the wave and not drop out of it.
Yes.
Very good. One last question for you, and thank you so much for your time. And you're just jam-packed today and tomorrow and tomorrow.
It's a busy day.
By the end of this decade, and we have crucial decades, and a lot is already happening, but what's your best case scenario, I guess, for what transport looks like by the end of the start of the 2030s?
Do you know what? I actually think that if we saw, and it's got to be a nation state as much as a company, but if we saw a fossil fuel company go, okay, we're really going to do it. You know, because some of them will spend, you'll hear they spent £10 billion on renewable energy. Wow, that's amazing. At the same time, they spent $100 billion just searching for new oil and gas. And what is a difficult thing to remember is that most of our fossil fuel comes from nation states, not private companies, not Shell and BP and Exxon and all those companies.
That's right.
It's from countries.
The majors are largely
and you
state
kind
owned.
of, and so the little glimmers of hope I've seen. Saudi Arabia are investing so much money in not needing to sell fossil fuel to maintain their nation. Abu Dhabi, I've been to see their renewable stuff. It's at the time I saw it, which was a few years ago, it was the biggest on the planet. They had, because they could afford it.
Yeah, that's right.
And they said, the guy actually said to me, and he was from the energy company in Abu Dhabi, he said, we don't want to burn oil to generate electricity, we want to sell it to you. That's why we've installed this solar farm that is massive. Powers half of Abu Dhabi city, one solar farm.
And back to Norway, that's of course what they do, is they're completely self-reliant. In fact, they're beginning to oversupply renewables, and so they'll export that as well as the oil and gas.
Yeah, so I mean, there are such enormous opportunities in all that. And I mean, you have to hope that. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. But I think the general consensus is now, the thing we experience very clearly in the UK, Russia invades Ukraine, the price of gas goes through the roof. Everyone in the country, doesn't matter what their political persuasion, whether they support Putin, whether they are left-wing, right-wing, any of those things, we all knew electricity got more expensive because of gas. No one said, oh, it's because of wind, or it's because the solar's gone up. No, everyone knew. And that has struck a chord in the whole country that is a shift in opinion and a shift in attitudes, which I think is, that's a positive thing out of a very negative event. So,
that's true.
We
ideology confronted a reality that was unarguable.
Yes, and let's not buy gas let's not give President Putin money.
No.
I'd be very happy not to give him any money.
Very good. Bring on nation states that are getting rich from renewables.
From oil, it's really difficult. I mean, so I don't even think it's, I totally understand why oil companies and nation states are, it's what their money is from. But one of the real corruptions of oil is, if you're a nation state and you've got oil and you sell that oil, you don't charge your population tax. You don't need to, which means they don't have any leverage with a government, and so you don't need a government. You go, look, here's some bananas. Shut up, and we'll take all the money.
Yeah.
And be utterly corrupt.
The resource curse.
Yes. I mean, I've kind of understood. Talked to people from Costa Rica who don't have any oil, and they're a really thriving country with amazing education. And just down the road, there's some of the most corrupt and violent countries on the planet who have got more oil than you can poke a stick at. So it's not, the resource curse. Sorry. Yes.
Very good. Robert, it feels like I've been watching a Fully Charged episode, just standing here with you. So thank you so much for your time. This is surreal, and it's always good to meet your friends' heroes, and you're definitely my friend's hero. And
thank you.
For me, I'm a fan, but no foot in mouth. So thank you so
really
much.
Good stuff. Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.